buy a new clock.
I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise by pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bonnie, your switch.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of his meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. The participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state your name and record, state your name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Wilkins.
Present.
Back. Here. Camper.
Here.
Prince.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Haynes.
Here.
First item this evening is consideration of approval of draft minutes of October 2nd, 2018.
Move approval.
Sorry. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Lang and Taggart, welcome back. Camper. Prince. Miller. Seward. Schmidt.
Items 2 through 7 are the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Lang and Taggart, welcome back. Camper. Prince. Miller. Seward. Schmidt. Haynes. Motion carried.
Item 8, consideration of approval of a code of conduct for the Seward Community Golf Course. Greg.
Yes, a number of weeks, maybe a few months ago, back, it was a request of Councilman Camper to take a look at some of the rules and regulations that were involved in the golf course. Specifically, it was pets, but at the time, we had to go look if we had a rule. We figured out that there was nothing officially adopted by any official body of the city, where that was the Parks and Rec Committee, this body. I think we were just going off a sign that was posted out there from the country club days. And so we went back and were tasked, Dan and Cody and Bob, myself, to come up with a generic list of rules and regulations. Ultimately turned into the code of conduct you see before you. We worked over it together at a number of meetings that we have with our golf meeting that we meet periodically for. And then we scheduled it to be presented before the Parks and Rec Committee at the beginning of October, and we informed all of the golf membership either via email, Facebook, or some direct mail for people that we didn't have emails for. We held that meeting, took feedback from both the Parks and Rec Board and the public, and we can walk through any of these you have on here. I don't need to, I guess, read it to you. Hopefully you've read it already and can ask if you have any questions. I can answer them. It does specifically mention Councilman Camper's pet issue, which is that pets are not allowed. Animals are not allowed on the course. And obviously, service animals and things are different in regards to that, but no animals. Parks and Rec, the only thing that they made a change was they just wanted to delineate between referring to the clubhouse and the pro shop. The pro shop is where you go to check in, pay your greens fees, and work with Cody, and we consider the clubhouse to be the upper portion with the bar and that area, the dining area. So that was the only clarification they made in regards to the code of conduct. We discussed dress a little bit at Parks and Rec Committee, but they ultimately decided that they wanted to keep the language as is. So.
Any questions or comments on the code of conduct? Yes, Alan.
Do we need to address the service animal issue?
I discussed this with the mayor, and I feel that if we go into that level of depth, and I've talked to Cody about this specifically and instructed how he should instruct the employees, but it's just like we have plenty of other areas that are public areas where animals are not allowed, but all of our employees should understand how to identify a service animal and the appropriate things to not do in regards to the service animal. And so they should understand, and we shouldn't have to make it explicit, otherwise we'd have to do it in every rule for every place we have.
It'd be similar like the library. You know, if someone comes in with an animal, it needs to be a service animal, or they'll ask them to leave. Any other questions or comments on item number 8?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
In favor, Wilkenbeck, Campbell, Fritz, Miller, Seymour, Schmidt, Hess, Michelson.
Item number 9, review United States Golf Association report. Greg?
Yeah, again, this summer, as part of the budget, we invited the USGA to come out with their licensed team of agronomists, and John Daniels was the green section, but he's also the one that came out. He met with Bob Core and Dan Kaler, and they went through a survey of the turf and kind of the whole makeup of the agronomist point of view of the course. So we're not looking at whether tees should be placed in certain things and the design elements, but actually the quality of the vegetation, the grass, the greens, the roughs, the fairways, and looking at that. Also some minimal discussions about, because obviously it plays into it, drainage and water. And so they went through that on July 16, 2018. The report is before you. Overall, very high marks from the USGA, a few recommendations. The predominant ones is to continue to work to address the drainage issues, especially along hole 8 as we go into the pond, and some of those areas where we see significant vegetation issues in regards to the fairway. And then a discussion of minimal maintenance, looking at to help with maintenance costs and things like that, and to provide a look and an aesthetic that is more conducive to what we're seeing at other courses throughout the areas that USGA looks at, is to have some areas of taller grass that are minimum maintenance, and so they'd be out of play. These aren't rough areas. I mean, these are completely out of play areas to help out with the way that we set up the course. And so that was the only other predominant recommendation. I apologize, Dan Kaler is not here. He's under the weather this week, and so he's not with us. But they were, both Cody, Dan, and Bob were also at the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. They went over this. I think Councilman Schmidt was there as well. They went over this document, reviewed it, and discussed it. I don't think there were any specific action items they had, but we wanted to get that in front of you and see if you had any questions about it. So.
Any questions or comments from the council? Although you take a, oh yes.
I'll just throw out, since I was at the Parks and Rec meeting, so I mean, conversations around this really obviously dealt with water in the ponds, and if you guys read the report, it talked about the ponds not being deep enough or shallow, so there was a lot of discussion around that. On hole 4, obviously that's been 3 years back, I think, when they added the additional tubes and took them out into the woods property, and obviously when we start working on the pond on number 8 and 9, in between there, it's gonna bring more water over to 4, which means more water going into the woods property out there. So there's just a lot of discussion around that and what we're gonna do to manage the water through there. I mean, they made great strides over the past year by digging the little creek, if you wanna call it a creek or a ditch, from 8 all the way across by number 6, 7, where it rolls out over there, so deepening that a little bit, so. I mean, that's what we gotta deal with, is the water issue, and I know, with our new, city engineer on board, that, Jake's been taking a strong interest in how the water's moving through there to try and come up with some answers for us.
Just in the last few days, I know he met with Cody and Bob and Dan out there last week to review some concept designs and then redraft some concepts, and then he met with me this week to go over theirs. Jake's already started working on some concepts, and he's ready to move into a full engineering design phase to help alleviate drainage issues through there. We're also looking at, we've had somebody that has interest in donating a fountain, so we have a fountain back out there. We think predominantly in the pond, the main pond by 8 is where we would look to do that. You need to have certain depths and things like that, so that's also playing into his design elements. But with depths in these different ponds, and as they translate to each other, he has to be careful with that. So he's working really diligently on that. It's high on his list, and so hopefully we'll have something for us to get to work on, maybe even still this winter, on a few elements of it. Cody, Bob, anything else to add since you came all this way tonight? I would say there were some peripheral things that were brought up at Parks and Rec Committee that weren't specific to code of conduct or the USGA report, but we did go out at our next golf meeting. We did address a lot of those things in regards to maintenance inside the pro shop, clubhouse, things like that, the way that we kind of follow up on making sure we do our chores and things like that and check them off and mark them, so.
Any other questions or comments from the council? I'd also like to move to accept the report.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, welcome back, Counselor Fritz, Miller, Seward, Schmidt, Hill, motion carried.
Item 10, acknowledgement of receipt of claim from Lisa Schmut, 1257 North Columbia Avenue, Seward, for personal property damage and forward to the city attorney and the city's insurance carrier. Greg?
Just another sewer backup, not related to any of the other ones specifically. And so I can answer any questions you have about it, otherwise just make a recommendation to forward on.
Move to forward it to the insurance company.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I doubt Greg will be able to clarify this because he didn't read it. Whatever, it looks like she flipped over the paper and wrote on the back, and I wasn't following where it said, I had a call a week before this happened and got a response from the Seward utility office that no issues were reported. Did something happen a week prior to this?
I had a call a week before this happened and got a response from the Seward utility office, and no issue were reported per the employee I spoke to. I don't know if this was turned into Bonnie, but
Obviously the person's not here.
I don't know if they
so I was
meant
just
to-
curious what
to
they
put
meant
it-
by that.
so. I know they've continued to use the camera and go through these, especially if we have a blockage, then we use the camera and go through and see if, what the issue might be, if there are roots or anything else. I'll just state, because I don't know all the specifics of this one, but if we did identify roots coming in, most of those right now, especially in these areas, we're finding are coming through people's taps. So if you think about the main, going down, this is probably the biggest main you'd ever see, but a big main, and then the taps come in throughout for each residence. What's happening is the vegetation, predominantly trees, is penetrating the tap, and then this is warm water, so the roots love this stuff, and then the roots come out, right out the tap. If you look at the video, this is what you'll see, and they come right out of their tap into our main, and then they slowly web out, and then that's what causes our blockages. And so we try to use the camera, and then also through the jetting system, and basically the rooter, we go grind all that stuff out and try to take care of it on our maintenance plans. But with that warm water and stuff, some of those roots can get a little nasty. But if we see the roots and we identify them, then we go through and we're able to tell what addresses those are, and we send them a letter right after we camera it to let them know that you probably have some sort of breach within your private line. And with a lot of those old clay line ones in the older areas of town, you would see ones, they'll break down, the roots will break them, and then they'll penetrate and go through. So, or they had a bad tap, the actual tap itself where it taps in around that seal is just bad and they're sneaking through. So predominantly we don't see bad mains, it's exposure at the tap point, so. And we can't obviously fix those elements, and so we try to let them know and maybe get new taps without clay lining.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, welcome back, Counselor Fritz, Miller, Seward, Schmidt, Hill, motion carried.
Item 11, consideration of a memorandum of understanding with Flex Homes LLC relating to a blight study. Greg?
It's a request for a blight study for a potential development, on the legal lots listed. These are the lots that are basically make up the northwest corner of Lincoln and North Columbia. There's a few different legal lots there and, buildings. I know one of them we recently condemned. But a developer that's looking at purchasing this property, but needs to, look at TIF financing, requested to see if it could be designated blight in some standard. That was okayed by the property owner, and so we entered into a memorandum of understanding that basically they're gonna pay for the blight study with no guarantee, even if it's found to be blighted by the people that are performing the study, but could not be potentially approved by this body. And so, but they requested it, so they have to pay for it, so the terms are laid out there. And there's no guarantees other than a study will be done. So, that's what we're doing.
Any questions or comments?
And we know the cost of the study, I know this is maxed out at $5,000.
Yep, we asked RGG ahead of time and looked at their timeline and also how much it would cost. And we already were advanced 3,500 on it, so.
Any other questions or comments? Now entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
William Bear, welcome back, Council Fritz, Miller, Seward, Schmidt, and Hughes, motion carried.
Item 12, the city administrator's report.
Just note that it looks like East Seward is being formed today and tomorrow morning, and they'll hopefully have a pour starting around noon, hopefully, and get East Seward poured, and then maybe we'll open it back up in a week or so, but they're gonna scramble tomorrow to get those forms up, and you gotta get it in before dark, so we'll keep following up on that. As I said, Jake continues to work on a number of projects, golf course being one of them. We did have our our comp plan open houses at Bottle Rocket and Neutral Grounds. They were pretty successful. A lot of good various members of the community came in and took a look at that. We got a lot of good feedback. And so we'll finalize some of those. We'll put out the draft document for the public to review for a little while here, and then have the steering committee finalize it and then bring it to planning and zoning city council over the next couple months. So, anything else in the city administrator's report? I can answer questions on if you have any.
Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the vote.
William Bear, welcome back, Council Fritz, Miller, Seward, Schmidt, and Hughes, motion carried.
Are there any future requests for council agenda items or administrative action? Seeing none? Jonathan, upcoming events?
Our Christmas festival, of course, with the Light Christmas Parade on Saturday after Thanksgiving, and we appreciate the support that we received that from the trade route, and look forward to hosting thousands of people in town for it.
Wonderful, thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks.
Motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
William Bear, welcome back, Council Fritz, Miller, Seward, Schmidt, and Hughes, motion carried.